then you can start smiling. And actually, I did that. I did that my first year. My second year, I was a bit more lenient because the kids knew already how to behave. Like, they were a bit less challenging. But the kids before, they knew exactly where my line was. Like, they did not cross it. And when they crossed it, they knew it. And I was like, okay, we're not laughing anymore. Like, this isn't funny. And they're like, I was like, that's right. It's like, be afraid of this. But yeah, so smiling at the wrong times. So again, if a kid does something inappropriate, don't smile, because it also encourages their friends to do it. Because, oh, hey, Miss Easton laughed, and so it must be okay. Handling problems publicly. I will say, a lot of the research said because it's embarrassing for children, and so it's not a good idea because kids will probably do the behavior again. I have done things publicly before, once or twice during the year. Like, I never do it every single time. And I have never gotten more misbehavior from it. So from a personal experience, of course, it's normally a respect thing. Like, I tell the kid, you have to drop the attitude now. And they're like, okay, fine. And then we talk about it, but like, aside from that, I'm not having like a huge discussion in front of everybody. It's just something quick and brief. So I feel like some problems, if it's just to remind a student, like, the attitude needs to go away now. Like, that's not what I'm expecting in my classroom. That's fine, in my opinion, in my experience. The research might tell you differently. But if I have to really talk to a student, I'll take them outside. I'll say, go meet me in the hallway. And they'll just go outside, and they'll wait for me there, and then we'll talk. I also know that some people have said getting down to the eye level of the student helps. Because it shows them that you're not above them, you're trying to talk to them like they're an individual. Like, why did you do that? And actually expressing yourself. Number 3, only giving verbal directions but nothing students can see or refer back to later. I have done this, and it is terrible. Mostly because you get 20 kids saying, what'd you say? It's like, oh, didn't you hear me? And they're like, no, you gave us like a novel. Like, first I want you to do this, and then this, and then this, and then don't do this again, but do this, and then do this. Now go do it. And the kids are like,
We miss all that.
okay. They probably heard the last thing I said, but they can't remember anything. So just making sure that when you give verbal directions, you also back it up with actual words. Like if I were to say, Fancy and Morgan, your group, you're going to go over to that center over there, and you're going to work for about 20 minutes, and then you're going to rotate to this center. I should have it on the board. Fancy and Morgan's group, back center, window center.
Okay.
Just so that you know, so after the 20 minutes, you're not like, wait, where? And then also you don't interrupt me if I'm talking with another student. So it works in a lot of ways, just so there's not a lot of disruption. Not waiting for complete silence before talking, and I've done this one too. If the classroom is really loud and you're trying to get their attention back, one of the ways that you can ruin your classroom management is if you start talking when not everybody's listening. Not only do the kids who are still talking, they don't hear you, and so they have to like ask their buddy, wait, what'd she just say? And that can lead to so many misunderstandings. But it also like tells the kids that it's okay if you're talking when I'm talking. And that can show that, oh, you don't have to be respectful when Ms. Easton's talking. Like, you can just talk right over her. She'll be fine with it. And that's not a good way to handle things. I have learned from experience. Learn from my misadventures. It's bad. Number 5, making students choose between listening and reading. When kids are reading, you should never be talking over top of them. Now, if you have to get instructions, just get your students' attentions by saying, everybody, listen to me for 1 second. So that they're breaking that concentration and they can listen to you. Otherwise, it's almost telling them and reinforcing that, hey, when she puts me on a task, it's okay if I get distracted. It's okay if I'm not focusing. It's okay if that person over there grabbed my attention. That's okay, because she grabs my attention all the time. So I did that last year, I will admit. I shouldn't have done that. I taped like things and I would like flick them on people's desks and stuff. I shouldn't have done that. I should not have done that. So again, misadventures.
Okay.
Only speaking in don'ts. Again, before it just puts kids in punishment mode, and it's not a good thing. Praise kids just as much as you say, like, you did this great, but this is what you could do differently, for this other situation. So kind of making like people say a compliment sandwich, compliment thing that they can improve on, compliment.
Oh, I see.
So the kids can remember the first thing you said and the last thing. They'll also remember the middle, but they remember the good feelings more than the bad. Talking too long, taking too long, I apologize, not talking too long, taking too long.
Okay.
And this is just in general, like if somebody does something that's a misbehavior and you didn't find it appropriate, obviously don't wait till the end of the day to talk to that student about the misbehavior. You know, as soon as you see it, talk to them. Otherwise, kids are gonna be like, oh, but then you must have thought it was okay because you only talked to me now. It's kind of like when the kids go on the playground, if a kid gets hurt, like they're like, oh, I think I sprained my ankle doing jumping jacks, okay. But they only come up to us at the end of recess and they're like, well, I heard it at the beginning of recess. Well, then you really didn't care enough about it to come and see me then, so it must not hurt too much. The same with this. If I didn't go to them at the very beginning, I must not have cared too much, because I should have gone immediately. A, staying up front or at your desk and not mixing with the students. And I did this at some, again, when I was less experienced, I have done this in the past, where you hang out in the back too much, and you could even just be doing something like grading. But when you're in the back too much, the kids know it. And so they will start like getting off task, they'll start, getting off focus, because they're like, well, she won't even hear us talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's fine. She's back there, she's not gonna notice us. And so it's always a good thing to make sure that you're mixing with the students and you're going around saying, oh, I like that, good job, that's a bit off. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow, thank you.
Terrible. No, I'm just kidding, don't say that to them. But just make sure that you're mixing around, you're helping students, it also tells them that you're available. And obviously being back in the, up there, or just staying up front and doing stuff on your own is obviously telling the students that you're not available for them. That if they're struggling, you're too busy for them. So it's good to make sure that they know that you're free, that you will help them when need be. Focusing on the problems, like Timothy. No, I'm just kidding, he's not a problem. But just focusing on the problems too much.
Okay.
Like just saying to the whole class, you're just so lazy, like every single day.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to help the kids get any better. They're just going to think, okay, well then I guess I'm always lazy. Or what am I going to do now? So it's good just to make sure that you're having that positive reinforcement. And then 10, I think it's my last one, yes. No, go back. Taking things personally. And this is tough. As a teacher, it's very tough. Yes, exactly. Macy's like, yes, it is very tough. It is tough. But just because, kids, they will act out, it has nothing to do with you guys. It has nothing to do with you. So when a kid, I don't know, it's a good misbehavior, calls out, or keeps interrupting, it's not about you. They're just kids, they make mistakes, Some kids in your class, they'll have ADHD or something, and sometimes kids aren't medicated. So sometimes that's just part, so we have to figure out ways using classroom management to help those kids and to just cull that misbehavior, the things that we don't want to see, the things that we think are inappropriate. But making sure we don't take it personally. Because it is tough, but it's not about you. It's really not. Kids are kids. They're not saying, I'm gonna make her cry today. It's my goal. I'm gonna make the teacher cry. They're not doing that on purpose. They're not doing anything in that regard.
What makes sense?
I would say unless you were in a really, really scary school.
Okay.
In which case they might be trying to intimidate you. I don't know. But yes, it's nothing personal. All right. So looking at, we just talked about classroom management. We saw what it was, what it is not. We looked at, oh my goodness. Whoa, what is expected? I was trying to think of the other headed. What we should establish on the first day of school, and the things that can actually ruin our classroom management. So now we're going to look at behavior management. It's very close to classroom management. It's just dealing with the behavior side. It's not dealing with the environment around you so much as it is dealing with students' behaviors primarily. So when students start to misbehave, how can we handle it? How can we manage behavior before it happens? And what are classroom management do's when talking about effective behavior management? So, student behavior is fundamentally related to the teaching environment. It is. I'm only going to say that once. By the way, at the end of these, I'm going to have some scenarios. So that's also why I gave you some printouts that you can refer back to them, because you guys are going to have to solve the behavior issues with the techniques that I give you.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Okay.
Student behavior is what the student does, and teacher environment is all the things that happen before, during, and after the student behavior. So I'm not talking about the physical environment. I'm not talking about, oh, here's a desk right now. I'm not talking about that physical environment. I'm talking about the teaching environment, the teacher, what she establishes with behavior.
Okay.
Yes. with that. Sorry, I know there's like a really fine line between like behavior management and classroom management because they're so similar. So it's like you have to take some stuff out for that. When discussing behavior management to create a functioning classroom environment, most people think of three things. They think of the importance of rules and routines, which is true. You should have rules and routines established. Punishments and consequences. Woo! Teacher's best friend. Just kidding. And the need of admin assistance, or like the office, the principal, the vice principal, if your school has one. We don't have a vice principal here, just principal.
Okay.
And then actually I have this quote from Sean Killian. I believe, yes, they're from the Australian Society for Evidence-Based Teaching.
Okay.
So they take all of this evidence from the internet and they compile it together to make it easier for teachers to gather all of that information instead of having to go to different places. He said, you may be surprised to learn that while it is true that all three of these strategies help to reduce misbehavior, there are simpler strategies that have far more impact. So these are kind of like the big things, kind of like if you imagine Mary Poppins' umbrella. These are all like the umbrella, but he says there are things underneath that umbrella, little things that can stop you from getting to the actual umbrella. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
There's little things under the big things. One of the things though that I would discourage with behavior management is this, the need for admin assistance. And the reason why, and I've done a couple of research projects on this, and I've also experienced it myself my first year teaching. The more that you go to an admin, the more that you go to the principal, the less power you have in your classroom. It's almost like the wait till your father gets home mentality, where you're telling the children that you have no power. That if they do something wrong, you'll be sent to the principals, and you never want that. Because then kids don't respect you and they don't see you as an authority figure. They see you basically as like a babysitter. And it's okay if they do things that are wrong, because they can do enough wrong things before you get to the point where they get sent to the principal's office. And even then, the principal is probably not going to do anything severe if it's just like calling out in class. Like, what is the principal going to do? Say, I give you 5 hours of detention? Well, that's really something that should be handled in the classroom. So that's why I would honestly discourage this. Only in like severe circumstances, like if a kid is throwing a chair across the room, get a principal. If something like, I don't know, a kid just set fire to a computer, call the principal. Don't wait, don't be like, oh, he's just expressing himself. Call the principal, call the principal. If something like, I don't know, a kid just punched another kid, call the principal. These are things that I would say, these can be the principal's tasks. Like those are severe enough that I have no punishment in my classroom that warrant, like if a kid punches another kid, I don't have anything severe enough in my classroom, but the principal does. The principal can say, well, you have out of school suspension. I can't give that.
Right.
So those are the extreme cases. But I would say anything that can be handled in the classroom, handle it in the classroom. Do not give it away to somebody else. That includes like even when you're in Sunday school. If there's a kid misbehaving, don't ever go to the other teacher and say, can you handle this? Because then that kid knows that if they're with you, they don't have to behave.
Yep.
Exactly. See, it's easy though. It's easy to want to like be friends with kids and not like be there, but you gotta be like authoritative.
You, like you said, end up feeling like the babysitter, and it's like you're not really doing anything except for watching.
Exactly. And they think that. They do think it. Ugh. So this is just something I found online that kind of went along with that, the wait till your father gets home trap. So it says, do you send all your discipline problems straight to the office? Do you threaten to call home every time a student misbehaves? Stop giving all your power away. To regain control of your classroom and establish yourself as the one in charge, try these tips. Be aware of it. Simply understanding the nature of the problem will help you turn it around. So be aware. And be aware that your power can become lost if you give it away. I will say, calling home, again, I would say for something severe that a parent should be aware of.
Okay.
Again, like if somebody is bullying somebody else, that's definitely a parent situation because the parents also need to talk to their child. You should talk to them too, but the parents should also as well to reinforce it. But I would say like if a kid's calling out, you don't have to say, guess who just called out again today? Johnny did. That's right. And then you better ground him some more, you know, because the parents, I mean, they don't want you to come to them with every single little problem because they're not going to do anything. Because it's not their job, it's your job. Number 2, find students' currency. Figure out what matters to your students. Free time, preferred seating, time on devices, recess, lunch, and leverage it. Leverage. Kids, oh my goodness, they will respond if they love it.
Okay.
Keep things positive. Already mentioned that, not going to go into too much detail on that one. Copy someone else. If you can't find a classroom system that works for you, seek out others in your building. I would also say, well, no, I'll say that for later. I'll say that for later. So copy someone else. For example, like I'm very blessed that Dave is very he's very cut and dry with his rules. You step out of line, he's gonna talk to you. You do something you shouldn't do, he knows exactly what to do. He's been doing it for a very long time. He's very good at it. So I'm very blessed because when I came here, he was a great example for me, an absolute great example. So I'm very thankful for that. I don't know if I would be a strong classroom management if it wasn't for Dave's help. I don't know if he knows how, I should probably tell him, how great he's been with that, but he was really good with that. He was very helpful. Oopsie. Okay, and then the last one, there we go, I was confused there. Practice vague promises. Sometimes we threaten to send a kid to the office because we know, well, we don't know what else to say. When in doubt, buy yourself time instead. So if you do that again, there will be a consequence. I also would suggest not saying something like, if you do that again, I'm going to take away your recess. Or if you do that again, I'm going to send you principals. I like the fact that they do keep it vague. They say a consequence. Because the kid doesn't know what's going to come.
I think it instills more fear.
Exactly. It instills more fear because the kid's like, anything could happen. Anything. I don't know. So I like that because then the kid's not like, well, I don't care about the office. Who cares? You know, but maybe I'm going to call your parents instead. But they don't know that because I kept it vague. And maybe they care about their parents now. So it's one of those things where just keep it vague.
That's a good idea.
They don't have to know the consequence. But also just being consistent and making sure you follow through. That if they do it again, you punish them.
Okay.
Because you said it. I've also, again, my first year, I would say things like that, and then 5, warnings later, I'm still like, if you do that again, I will do something. If you do that again, I will do something. And the kids, again, blind spots, they figured it out.
Yeah.
She won't do anything, she's fine. All right, so what strategies work in diffusing misbehaviors? Number 1, strong student-teacher relationships, strong parent-teacher relationships, and strong student-to-student relationships. It sounds like a lot of relationships, and it is. Something that I wanted to give you an example of, because this worked very well my first year when I taught here. I didn't have any time to do it last year. Honestly, I'm going to be taking social studies time now periodically because with social studies, it's all about building better citizens, and I think that this helps with building better citizenship. Even classroom citizenship, and just the classroom community. But the first year, I did something called the respect circle. And what happened was all the students would sit in a circle, and they would face each other. And the expectation was, you don't talk unless you have the ball. And what happened was that the person who passed it, like if I had the ball and I passed it to Fancy, I would pay Fancy a compliment. Because some of those students don't get that reinforcement at home. And some of their classmates never bother to even tell them kind things. So I would say, I really like your shirt today. And progressively, it would get more detailed based on Fancy. It'd be like, oh, you really make me laugh a lot, and that's wonderful. And then Fancy would pass it to Morgan, and she would say, you know what? You get an awesome personality, and I love your name. And then you'd say thank you, and then move on, and it would get progressively more. Like we would also start then talking about our hopes and our dreams, our wishes, the things that we like that people do, and the things that we don't like that people have done. Things that have happened in our past that have upset us in like a classroom setting. And that way the students, this was actually a more student-to-student relationship. This helped them build a community because now the kids were also watching out for each other. I knew that first year if a kid was doing something they weren't supposed to do, their classmate would say, she doesn't want us to do that. And it would stop immediately and I wouldn't have to say a thing. The kids would manage themselves because they were so used to each other and so used to giving that advice and used to giving that information that it didn't really scare them anymore to like confront somebody and say that's wrong. Like you shouldn't be doing that. And so that really handled a lot of misbehaviors. Parent to teacher relationship, if the students know that you're like, buddy-buddy with their parent, they are not going to do a thing. Because they know that once you call home, that's it. Their Xbox going in the fire, their cell phone's going in the trash. So it's a good thing that if you have like a good parent-teacher relationship. And then obviously student to teacher, and we've already mentioned that before. It's good to know your students and it's good for them to know you. To a degree. Again, don't look at that Maslow's thing and think otherwise. Number 2, I'm really a good teacher, guys. Number 2, structure your teaching. So again, just making sure that what you have planned is not like kindling to the fire of boredom. Because boredom breeds misbehavior. Now some things, they're just gonna have to sit down and do. I know that one of the biggest hassles in my class is getting the kids to write. They can't stand writing. Of course they can text like a huge paragraph, but they're like, I can't stand writing. It's the same thing, people, just not with buttons. But anyway, so it's just structuring your teaching. Like for me, I knew that when they did writing, they had to be independent. And they had to be by themselves because if they were with a group, they would get off task so easily. And it would be me constantly having to say, no, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. And so after a while, I'm like, well, if they're independent and I give them choice on things, they'll be fine. Like they get to choose what interests them and they're by themselves, so there is no talking. So there's no one who's encouraged to be like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, woo! And start talking about that instead of doing what they should be doing. I found a comic online.
Oh.
So it says, Mrs. Mutner liked to go over a few of her rules on the first day of school. So again, making sure that you're not structuring your classes to be don'ts. So like, no coming in early.
No goofy hairstyles.
Yes, no goofy hairstyles.
No
No crying during tests, which apparently is a big
Oh.
thing.
No looking at
No
the clock.
sneezing. Wow.
No smart alecky remarks. No screaming.
No coming in late.
No sweating?
How can someone
I
control
know
that?
I thought too.
No smiling. No talking.
That's terrible. I know you're not with that, Jones.
Well, I was actually waiting to put them up here.
Well, maybe I was wrong.
And also here. And that should cover all my rules for the class. No. So again, just making sure that you're structuring your teaching to make sure it's all positive. And then also that you make sure that you know your kids' interests and you structure your lessons accordingly. And also you know what they do well with and what they don't do well with. Because, again, some small group stuff doesn't work well. Some individual stuff doesn't work well. Number 3, nip small problems in the bud. Is it really bud? Is that really the correct saying?
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay.
Because it's like, if you're fruiting a plant, you want to know
Ah.
the bud.
You're right.
So it doesn't
There we
grow.
go. Thank you. See, you guys taught me something. Thank you.
Actually, what was nice is you already made it green like plants, which worked out
Yeah.
really well.
I just did like I was trying to do anyway, like a rainbow effect.
Yeah.
A terrible rainbow effect, but yeah, there you go, it's green. So I totally know that I totally knew that.
You did.
See if you did, it's okay. So nip small problems in the bud. Again, if someone is calling out, before all of a sudden every student realizes, hey, she does nothing. Stop that kid.
Right.
Stop them. Same with like if a kid is bullying another kid, stop it. Or if, as best as you can. Obviously, you can't control a student 100% of the day. Like if they're in the bathroom, what can I do? I can't do anything. But like I can't just watch them the entire time. Like they walked into the stall, watch the stall. Coming out anytime now. So I mean, we're just nipping in the bud. Otherwise, other students they feed off of it and they realize I can do that because there's no consequence. Nice.
I had that with like kids not being in their chairs. Like once one kid wanted to sit on the floor, like okay, it's okay if you sit on the floor. Then all the kids wanted to lay across the chairs, be under the chairs. Like it was just on the tables.
I know, and it's hard because sometimes you think, well, you want to make it easier for yourself too. It's like, I don't want
It's not classroom management.
Yeah. It's like,
Throw it out.
I know, I can see how that's how the problem starts because it's like, I don't want to have to keep telling them to do this thing, so I'll just let it slide. And then before you know it, everyone's sliding.
Exactly. Now, what I would suggest in that case is student choice is very powerful because it gives the illusion that they control their destiny when they don't. So in other words, like for the kid that wanted to sit on the floor, you could have said, well, you can sit in your seat or you can sit on the floor. You have 2 options. Which one do you want? So in other words, you're getting the kids to do what you want them to do because you're only giving them 2 options that you approve of, but they feel like, I've got the power. I can choose whichever one I want. But on the inside, you're like, haha, no. You cannot choose. I'm sorry. There we go. If you start to see small problems arising, here are some things you can do. Make eye contact with the student. My first year, when I drew that line very, like, I ingrained that into their brains because they were a bit crazier. Love that group, but they were a bit crazy. If a kid was doing something, all I had to do was, and they would stop. So I mean, it's like, it's a good technique, especially when they know where that line is. Because they knew as soon as I looked at them, that was it. Like, they needed to stop. Like, number 2, zone of proximity. That means how close you are to the student. So if your student way back there is making a lot of jokes or fart noises or whatever kids do nowadays, fidget spinning, if you just walk up to them and just stand beside them and just like read from your book or like talk from your slide from there, kids are more discouraged from doing what they were doing because, oh my gosh, now she's here. So now it's not like, well, maybe she sees me or maybe she doesn't. Now it's she saw me.
Right.
Like she saw me and now I know it. So I gotta stop. Having them perform a task to distract the behavior. If Fancy here is starting to make farting noises, obviously I'm so sorry, I knew you wouldn't do that. I'm rolling with that analogy here. But she's making farting noises and I'm like, Fancy, stop, but she keeps doing it. I can say, you know what? Go out and talk to Mr. Barrett. Ask him if we can do something, you know, can I have you guys an extra 5 minutes before lunch? And so doing that will hopefully take the kid's mind off of that and onto something else. It doesn't work for everything, but it has worked for me in the past on some things. Like I know I've had some antsy kids that in the mornings they could not sit still. And it's just in the mornings, like during homeroom. And so what I would have them do is I would have them be my office deliverer, so they would take the folders down and they would get all that energy out by walking and doing other things. And they could go as slow as they wanted. It's homeroom, but they could go as slow as they wanted. I mean, they couldn't deliver stuff until their homework was done, like, or they did something productive in homeroom. But after that, I mean, I didn't care if they wanted to walk slow or not, or talk to the office, you know, women in the office. I was fine with whatever. Again, not as long as they're like, you know, wandering the halls. It's different. But, you know, if they're going to and from where they should be, if they're getting that energy out, I'm fine. Because they're not distracting the others and the others can do what they're supposed to do. Remind the student or small group of the expectations. If you guys are over here talking about Teenage Mutant Turtles, I can say, we're supposed to be reading chapter 1. Not talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And sometimes it's enough to make kids pop back into what they're supposed to be doing. Not always, but sometimes enough. Simply tell the student or group to get back to work. I thought the first one was better, not gonna lie. I feel like if I were to say, back to work, kids are gonna be like this isn't a sweatshop, I don't have to do this. So I just feel like the first one seemed more tender and the other one seems more like I'm gonna have like a ruler in my hand and cracking and saying, back to work, or this. You know what I mean? It's almost like a more threatening approach.
Right.
Group reinforcement, rewards, and punishments. I will say this right now, I saw conflicting data on this part right here. Some data said that group punishments are good. Others say group punishments are bad. And I understand where they're coming from. If one kid in the class is causing all of the group to be punished, I feel like in that case you should only address it for that child. If it's multiple students, then group punishment will help all of the kids be accountable. Like, in other words, then if Fancy's talking, Morgan can be like, she's going to make us lose lunchtime if you don't stop talking. Like, it helps Morgan be a part of it and helps her make you accountable.
Right, that makes sense.
By giving her some responsibility. But again, if it's only Morgan who's like making fart noises and things like that, then I should be talking to her and not the whole class.
Right.
So I mean, it's just like it's like a fine line. You just gotta make sure that you know when to use it and when not to use it. For group rewards, that's always great. Having like, I don't know, if everybody gets an A on their spelling test, you get a pizza party, or if everybody comes, actually, tell you what my grandmother used to do when she taught 2nd grade, eons ago. She was such a great teacher though. Kids loved her. But she had a procedure and a rule, an expectation that if you come in during, or after recess, and you put your head on your desk and you're quiet and you're calm, that she would give the whole class an M&M.
Aww.
And the kids loved it. And actually that's one of the things that they remember from her. And that she'd always lead the day by giving each a hug and saying, you're like a precious, you're a precious gift from God. Like she would say that. She worked at a parochial school. But yes, but she would say like, you're a precious gift from God. And it's like always the things that they remembered. But she always gave like a good positive group reinforcement. It's always a good thing to do. I like positive group reinforcements. What I'll do like during PSSA time is if the kids do really well during the PSSA week, I'll give them some extra recess. I was like, you guys did great, I'll give you an extra 15, 20 minutes of recess at the end of the day. And they're like, what? And they get all excited. They're like, I can't believe it. Like, it makes like their whole life. And it's like, it's just 20 minutes, guys. Staying calm and collected. The worst thing you can do, especially with classroom management, is, and this I guess also goes to taking it personally, is to get angry. As soon as the children realize that you have lost control of yourself, they're basically like, I won. And you don't want kids to see that you've lost control. You want to always make sure that you maintain control by staying calm and collected. Even if the kid is screaming at you, it's better to remain calm than to start getting like angry. Because then you're one-upping the kid, they're trying to then get angrier at you, you're getting angrier at them. The student is like a completely uncontrollable situation. And it's much better if you just nip that in the bud.
Alright.
There you go, by staying calm and collected.
Nice.
And then number 6, consistency with consequences and punishments. We've already talked about that. I'm not going to go back into detail about that. Now, the last thing that I'll have on the video, because we have reached our 1 hour point, will be planning a classroom for low levels of disruptive behaviors. So how can you stop the misbehaviors before they happen?
Okay.
So these will cause low levels of it. An economic system is one of the ways. It causes intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Do either of you know what these words mean?
Oh, intrinsic is value. Like, but is it monetary value? I'm not sure.
Personal value.
It's personal,
Like
okay.
the value that you have on something.
Okay.
Like in other words,
Extra.
my phone can connect to the internet. So intrinsically, I have value in this. Like I put my own value into it because
So they wanna
it can
get
do
internet.
stuff for me.
Right.
And I love that.
Or like something that's like, this is a piece of pottery that's like not worth a lot, but it would belong to my grandmother or something like that. So it's like, oh, okay, gotcha.
An intrinsic is more like you're motivated to do something
Oh,
because of it. So like in other words, this helps me connect to the internet. That's extrinsic, but it becomes oh gosh, it's so hard to explain with a cell phone. I should not have done that. Okay. It's hard to do it with that one because there's like multiple facets to it. Anyway, so I'll explain with like a classroom situation. If you give a child a reward, like either a praise or a puzzle eraser or candy for something that they do, that they should do automatically, like just taking their seat at the end of recess, like my grandmother did, or raising their hand to speak, being kind to somebody else. You give them these rewards, but then, which is extrinsic, so they want to do it because they're getting something from you. And then you slowly take away those rewards, and then the kid builds up an intrinsic that they just want to do it because they want to do it now.
Okay.
Okay, so that's probably better. So in other words, then if Fancy raises her hand every time that she speaks, and I say, awesome job, and I give her candy, I might slowly take it away and start changing the candy into praise, and then slowly take away the praise as well, and maybe just smile, and start taking things away, but then hopefully she's intrinsically motivated to just do it anyway, because she knows that she's still feeling satisfied, even though the extrinsic motivation is gone. So extrinsic is like outwardly, intrinsic is an internal motivation. So I'm trying to go back to the cell phone thing here, and I don't think I'm going to get it right. So like for my phone, this is an extrinsic motivation because I want to do something with it. But I'm intrinsic, I just want to do stuff now with it because I do.
Okay.
So it used to be because it was it's still external, but it used to be because it would do things for me that I enjoyed. Now I just want to do it. Now I just want to do stuff like that. And plus, I also want to create things that are like the things I see in my cell phone because I'm intrinsically motivated in that direction because I like the stuff I've seen. I like the